Hello everybody, happy Friday. Today we are going to be talking about brow mapping, yay! We did post a couple of videos yesterday of how we find our key points. So before we even go into doing our outline, we like to find key points on the face. It's almost like a blueprint or a roadmap. Gives us some idea where we want to be drawing the brows so that we're not just, going right into it and trying to freehand it right off the bat. You can, if you do that, that's perfectly fine. If it works for you, stay doing that. But the way that we teach, just starting out, it's good to get some of those key points. So anyway, that's the video that we showed yesterday. You guys really liked it, and a couple of you were even asking, for me to go more in depth, like how do you use the bone structure to figure out the placement on the face and all this other good stuff. We do go over this in our Microblading 101 class, but I'll, give you a quick kind of run through of how we would use the face. This is my model here. I'm going to be using this as model, how we use the bone structure to figure out where we're going to place the brows. So the past couple videos I posted, you already saw how we got, we measured the center of the face, and then we have point 1, 2, and 3. This is where the brow is going to start. This is where your arch is going to be, and then this is where your tail is going to be. These are all things that we teach in our 101 class. So, if you've taken another class or if you've taken one of our classes previously, this is just how we, do our mapping. There's a lot of different right ways to do things. There's definitely a wrong way, but if you didn't learn it this way, it doesn't mean that how you learned it was wrong. This is just how we teach it in our 101 class. And again, if you're unsure of how I found these points, join us for one of our classes. You can reference back one of the previous videos. Okay, so the next question was, how do we know where to start the brow? And obviously we have, this is where the front is, so we are pretty sure this is obviously where we're going to start a brow, but how low or how high on the face do we start? There's no exact answer for this, so I can't say, oh, well, you measure up from, half an inch up from where the eyeball is, because it's not going to be the same on every single person. If you use stencils, that's great, but you still need to know where to place them on the face, how high or how low to place them. Okay, so what I like to go off of is the bone structure, the eye orbit. And again, it's kind of hard to see on my model here because there's not a lot of shadows or anything else. But when you are working on an actual client, you're going to be feeling for this bone right here. My fingers are running along it. Okay, right where my thumb is at, my thumb is right tucked inside where the nose curves up into where the brow, the eye orbit starts. So on your client, you're actually feeling right around here. The brow should start, this should be a nice flow here, right from the nose, right into the eye orbit. So you can almost see a little bit of a shadow there. And I'm gonna grab my pencil, so on your client, okay, you're feeling, this is where that eye orbit starts to curve up a little bit. I'm gonna tuck my finger right in here, and right above my finger, right where that eye orbit starts to curve, we're gonna go ahead and just mark it off right about there, okay? So that is right about where your brow should be starting. Again, this is a nice flow. Everything should be flowing on the face. If we start our brow down here, too low, that's gonna give them a very angry, they're gonna look angry all the time. Your client, it's not gonna be a nice flow from the nose up into the eye orbit. It's almost gonna make a turn there, like a right angle, a 90-degree angle, and that's gonna make them look angry all the time. If we started up too high, up here, again, the nose following up to the eye orbit, it's gonna give them a very surprised look, because now we're all the way up into their forehead. So we don't want them walking around looking super surprised 24/7. That's not a good look. So again, we're gonna put our finger right underneath that bone, okay, or your pinky, some finger might be a little bit, our first finger might be a little bit too large to stick in there, but just a pinky, feeling around for that bone. My pinky's resting right in that little corner there, and I mark off right above my pinky, right where that bone starts to curve up. Okay, so that's where we're starting our eyebrow. As far as the thickness goes, that's really something that you need to talk to your client, during your client consultation, when you're starting to do this process. How thick are you used to drawing your brows on? Normally, if someone comes in with absolutely nothing, they're definitely penciling them on. They're, you know, doing something, unless it's, you know, like a man with alopecia, he's probably not doing anything. But if someone has little to no brow hair, you know, 99% of the time they are penciling their brows in. So it's okay if your client brings in a picture of what they're used to, or hey, this is what I would like. As long as their face can handle the shape and the size that you're going to put on their face, that's the most important thing. And unfortunately, you know, there's no equation for that. There's no tricks or anything like that. You need to be able to, after you draw your shape on, after you draw the thickness and the shape and the outline, you need to be able to sit your client up, look at them and say, you know, yes, this does look good on their face. This, you know, highlights all of their features. It's, you know, sits on their face frame real nice. Or no, you know, these are too thick. They're too close to the center of their face. They're too far back. All of these measurements, and we go over this in my 101 class, where the brow starts, the arch, and the tail. These are all in a perfect world. These are not going to work 100% of the time, but these are just your base to go off of. So even if I say, okay, from the corner of the nose, the outside corner of the eye, that's where the tail should be. If I feel like the tail is too long where it should be and it's dragging her eye down, then yeah, I'm going to go in and shorten it a little bit. So you have to be able to look at, you know, use your better judgment, look at your client and say, yes, you know, this does something good for their face, or no, this does not do something good for their face, and maybe I need to change, you know, my original plan. Okay, so usually for someone, you know, that doesn't have a lot of brow hair, doesn't have, you know, any hair at all, I like to keep them thinner. Microblading is a two-step process, so we're going to have them come back in for a touch-up. So let's do a little bit the first session, and then we can always add it the second session. You don't want to go in and give them this big, thick brow, and then have them come back in and say, you know, they're way too thick, what do we do? I would rather do them a little bit thinner, stay conservative, have them come back in and say, you know, yes, I do like this shape, or maybe we can go a little bit thicker this time. Okay, so we have where we're going to start. All right, and again, following the brow bone. This is why we sharpen our pencil like this too. You see how nice and flat it is? So this stabilizes my hand. Okay, and again, I'm following the bone. I want my arch to come up on top of that eye orbit. So think about when, you know, when as women we do our makeup, how we put a little bit of that lighter color right under here to highlight that bone. That's what we want the arch to do. So we don't want to draw our arch right on top of that bone, because again, it's going to close in the eyes, it's going to make them look angry and their face scrunched in. We want to open up the eyes. So, and notice how I'm doing this. I'm not just going and doing one straight line. I'm kind of inching my way along, following the bone structure. And these model heads are not great 100% of the time, because this is a pretty harsh bone structure that she has. This is a pretty pronounced eye orbit, so you know, your clients may or may not have an eye orbit that's actually this close to their actual eye. Okay, so we're coming up like that. So just at a little bit of an angle, right above the bone. And again, this whole time I'm taking into account her bone. So if I fit my finger right where I can feel where her eye orbit is, this is where her eye orbit begins, right about here. So you can see that her arch is right above that. Okay, and now for the tail, I'm going to continue the tail. Remember, the arch is the highest point of the brow, so everything should be going down from the arch. Whether it's the under arch or the top of the arch, everything should be going down. Okay, just a little bit. The other thing too, what we don't want is for our tail to ever dip below where we're starting the brow. So this tail should not be coming and ending all the way down here, okay? We want the tail to end either even to where the brow starts or just a little bit higher, okay? And again, for the thickness, you know, that's something that you need to have a conversation with your client about, see what they want, what they're used to, okay? And then for the top of the outline, we go over this in our 101 class, okay? So I would just basically follow this top, taper down at the tail there, but this is how I start my brow. I always start doing my bottom outline and then I go to the top. My top outline is dependent on where I draw my bottom outline.